as of the time of recording, the biggest news in the NFL this week has been that Baker Mayfield has been traded to the Carolina Panthers, and for a 2024, if I'm correct, column 5th round pick, a conditional 5th round pick, and the Panthers have they're only paying like 40% of his salary as well. What's your thoughts on this move? Firstly, for Baker, column, and secondly for the Browns.
Well, I knew it had to happen. I said it when we recorded in person that there's no way Baker would play for the Browns again, no matter what happened. We've seen some very funny memes in the interim with the we're short-handed tonight. Oh, that's crazy. Good luck though. And that's how the Browns have a mess to deal with. But for Baker, he gets a chance to move on. He moves on and now has a man who Brian will know well, Ben McAdoo, as his offensive coordinator, a man who didn't have particularly nice things to say about Baker when Baker was coming out of the draft. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. The Panthers had to do something. They have a head coach who's on the hottest of hot seats. They have been a mess at the quarterback position. They have the second richest owner in the league. He is apparently a man who, doesn't have a huge amount of patience. So they went and got the deal done. Maybe they were concerned, given that the US Open decided to have a go at Drew Lock. They were concerned that the Seahawks would realize that, they don't have a quarterback and they probably should have gone and got Baker. And instead, they just got the deal done. Look, if it's 2020 Baker Mayfield, the Panthers are getting a good QB, but he has to show that he's come back from the injury, and they still have to figure out what they're now going to do with Sam Darnold and Matt Corral. They actually gave up more in draft capital for Matt Corral than they did for Baker Mayfield, but obviously there's the contract.
Did you see the US Open tweet today to the Panthers? So they tweeted back, "Great for our guy Drew." So this is a whole thing now, and I think it's great. But yeah, Colin took my next point, Brian. They traded more to get Matt Corral. Sam Darnold is in that situation in Carolina, and you've now got Baker Mayfield. I think there's 4 quarterbacks there now at the minute. Are Carolina, Brian, the Anglo-Irish bank of the NFL teams?
Well, they are to a certain extent because they just can't find the right dollar or the right punt, or the right euro. But they seem to look. I think
this with a punt side.
Well, it's been a while, and it's been a while in coming with this trade because it's been inevitable for quite some time that this trade was going to happen. And the only thing really was delaying it was who was going to blink first in terms of the salary. He was due 18 million Cleveland. I think they come to a compromise. He's getting paid 5.5 million by the Panthers. He's foregoing 3 million himself to make the deal happen. He's also foregoing a holiday, so he skipped the holiday to make his way to Carolina. And you talk about Sam Darnold. Well, week 1 last year, the Panthers played the Jets, and the Panthers beat the Jets, and Darnold played reasonably well because he'd a point to prove to his own team. And lo and behold, week 1, and we spoke about it when we were recording live a few weeks ago, who would be the quarterback for the Panthers? Well, I think it's a given that come week 1, they're going to play the Browns at home. And if anything, it certainly gives us a storyline to wet our lips already. The juices will be flowing for this game. Panthers at home, the Browns, which we probably thought for a long time wouldn't be the case. But now the real question is, who's going to be the quarterback for the Browns as opposed to who's going to be the quarterback for the Panthers? And Colin touched on other stuff around Baker and the fact that he's played well in the past. Which Baker they're going to get? Are they going to get the one from last year? I think they're going to get a guy who has a point to prove. And certainly in week 1, he will be doing his utmost to stick it to his old team. So it makes for a great opening weekend with a number of games, but obviously this is going to be a real storyline as we lead up to that game in September.
The Cleveland Browns are paying Baker Mayfield $10.5 million. He's not going to play a game this year. And Deshaun Watson between 45 and 46 million, depending on the number of games he plays this year. I, for one, Colin, I'm delighted and very excited to see, because we talked about this week. I can't wait to see Pro Football Focus's odds or standings for the Browns now. Will they still be in the top 6? Because Jesus, I mean, they could bring Case Keenum in there or Case Keenum in there, or I don't know who's going to start now. Like, is Jacoby Brissett genuinely going to start a game for this whole franchise? And we'll hear our guests talk about this in a minute. I don't want to say like they'll not get 4 wins, but Jacoby Brissett is not taking the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs this year. I don't care what they've upgraded; it's not happening. Definitely not division.
Matt Verdem, who was on the show with us a few weeks ago, tweeted to say the Browns traded a former number 1 overall pick who has their only playoff win since '94 for a conditional 5th while eating salary, while also paying $230 million guaranteed to a player who might not play at all this year and is still facing 4 civil suits. Just brilliant strategy. And you know, this is the thing, the Browns have found a way to out-Brown themselves this year. You cannot.
Is that a word or?
Well, it is, because they are the Browns, and I don't know where it leaves them this year. I know that Brian was saying, we were discussing that Michael Lombardi had said that he could see them potentially go and make a trade for Jimmy G, because there's a huge amount of talent on the rest of that roster, and they're obviously paying big money. And how do you, I suppose, keep guys like, what if it's Jacoby Brissett? How do you ask guys to give 100%? I could ask the same thing about Seahawks and Drew Lock. I don't know what they do, but if they were to go and get Jimmy G, do they have to give their 2 remaining picks in next year's draft? Because that's all they have. They have a 2nd and a 3rd. Would they have to give that away? Could the Browns have no picks? And if they did get Jimmy G, what would happen next summer? It's a mess. It is a real mess.
I think it's sorry, Mike. I was going to say, I think it's a bit unfair to say they've out-Brown themselves, because I would suggest when the deal took place in March, which was March the 18th, I believe, just the day after St. Patrick's Day, that a lot of people felt that he would only be getting a 4-game ban, and they could live with that for a couple of games with Jacoby Brissett as a quarterback, potentially win 1-2 games and have him back in the fold. As the months have gone on, things have deteriorated in terms of what's happened. You know, other stuff has come out now, and unfortunately, it hasn't got any better. It's only got worse. And now the Browns really are in a situation where there's buyer's remorse. But I don't think they would have foreseen all of which has taken place. But they took a gamble. They rolled the dice, thinking that they're going to get a quarterback in the future. You could argue he still is the quarterback in the future, but you won't be seeing any playing time this season.
You've been very skeptical of Baker Mayfield. Like, you have, like, every like on our shows, on our pick shows during the season, you are like, am I right in saying that you would not rate Baker Mayfield if he was at the Browns this season in terms of his performance?
He's 3 years removed. What 2018? Am I correct in saying he was the 1st round pick? So
he took them to the playoffs. Like, I mean, how many quarterbacks in Cleveland in the last 30 years can say that?
He doesn't seem. I know he's a bit controversial at the time, but I don't think I wouldn't put him down, deem him as a troublemaker. I think he makes his point be known, which a lot of quarterbacks do in the league. But he's 4 years off from being the 1st pick in the first round, and now he's been traded for a 5th round conditional pick. When the Browns, as Colin has alluded to, have very little picks next year, so you think they would also be trying to do their utmost to get some picks back. They've got literally nothing back in return. So for me, he is what I thought he was, which was an average quarterback at best, and he's gone to an average team. And he might play well next year, but will it make the Panthers win any more games than what I expect? Probably not.
In terms of the internet column reacting to this, the best one I've seen is your bald guy from Pawn Stars, the show in Las Vegas, saying the best he can do is a 5th, sort of taking the hand, like, yeah, I'll do this. Something tells me that we're going to look back on this and laugh very heavily in 12 months. Maybe I'm wrong. The whole thing, if you go back towards a week through SoFi, right, sitting in February, the Browns had all the collateral. They had everything sitting there, and they've really messed this up. Like this is a major.
Well, it is, but do the Washington Commanders not now feel because a Baker is surely a better option than Carson Wentz, and they would have had to give up less to get Baker, and that's where maybe some teams moved a little bit too early. I think the Commanders almost seem to react to the Wilson trade to the Broncos and kind of panicked and went out to get Wentz. Whereas if they'd sat in their hands a little bit, they probably could have had Baker and been in a better position. So there's a lot of teams I think will be looking at maybe the past 12, 24 months, because essentially for the Panthers, right, the Panthers moved on from Cam and got Teddy Bridgewater. Then they moved on from Teddy, who they continued to pay. I mean, they essentially paid for Teddy Bridgewater to play for the Broncos last year. Gave up a huge amount to bring in Sam Darnold. We know they brought Cam back and were paying him a fortune. As we've talked about, they moved up to get Matt Corral, and now they have Baker. What are the Seahawks going to do? What are the Commanders going to do? It could make for an even more interesting. We already knew next year's draft was going to be interesting, but it could get even more interesting because obviously the Eagles are, waiting to see. Hurts could be the guy, or they could be looking to get a new quarterback next year. There is so much in flux at the moment.
Go ahead.
You could probably argue that Teddy Bridgewater has been the most consistent quarterback that the Panthers have had in the past 4 or 5 years, and they were quick to move him out of town to Denver. Again, I wonder would they look back and say, maybe we should have held on to him for another year and allowed him to be the quarterback in the second year. What I would say on the Browns is they do have a strong side. They are in a very competitive division. I mean, the returning AFC champions are in the division. We expect a bounce back from the Ravens. The Steelers are a bit of an unknown. Like, we have seen strange seasons in the past where teams rally around players and rally around head coaches, and the Browns, if they were to rally and get their heads together, they do have a strong side, in particular defensively. So I could see a situation where they earn a lot of games, but ultimately it's going to come down to whether the quarterback has enough to win games. And I could even see a scenario where they start the season and they quickly realize Jacoby's not the man and they make a trade for somewhere else. But again, if they don't have many picks, what can they do?
Last week we done our week 1 predictions. Did we all pick the Browns?
You picked the Panthers, Michael.
I'm sticking to that, boys. This is going to start a whole different conversation. We're going to wrap it up now. I'm going to say it here now. In the first week in July, the Browns are finishing 3rd or 4th in that division. I'm just going to say it. They're not no. As it stands, unless they bring and they haven't got the cap space to bring somebody substantial in to get that team over the line. I'm not having it. Jacoby Brissett's not going to take that team to the playoffs. Forget about the division. That they're not getting to the wild card in that conference. It's not happening. Colin, who's the guest this week?
The guest this week, it's fitting. Brian, did you have a point?
I do. Sorry, I know we want to get the guest on because it's a great guest. Michael, I haven't allocated the teams out for season preview, but you can take it as a given. You've got the Browns.
No.
I am already looking forward to the season preview show. Last year there was plenty of debate and discussion. I imagine it will be the same again this year. So I can look forward to that next month.
I can't wait to hear your picks for the Super Bowl, boys. I can't wait to hear who's going to be hoisting her at the end of the year.
Well, there'll be Michael's August pick, Michael's October, November.
Oh, no.
So lots to look forward to.